For us recently, I feel like something's changed quite a lot. We're finishing this documentary off, which is quite it's not quite, it's the most important thing we've ever done, like to get this.
Yeah, and congratulations.
Thank you. And I think it's a lot of false thoughts that come to mind that are putting restrictions on us at the moment. And it's so strange how the emotions are changing and a lot of things change around. And I think it is that those two states of being that we need to decide where we're at.
Like what false thought, for example?
Not capable of doing this is probably the biggest one.
And so that is still there even after you've completed the documentary? Is it moving into now the selling of the documentary also not capable?
We're in the editing phase now, so we're halfway through the editing phase. So that's where I think we're like, oh, are we capable of doing this? But it has been, I think a lot of that was down to inaction, so fear that we were not capable of doing it. Now that we've kind of started, it's definitely starting to fade, that feeling.
So let's work this for a second. You got a minute? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when you believe you're not capable of something, it's problematic because the brain is a goal-achieving machine. So whatever you believe, like I'm not capable of this, well, on a moment-by-moment basis, as you're engaged with whatever the thing is that you're concerned you're not capable of doing, it'll produce thoughts of incapability. Mm-hmm. You'll notice those pieces that you don't do well. You'll have a creative block. You'll start to think to yourself, oh, this footage wasn't very good. Maybe this whole thing was a mistake, right? So at the foundation is the belief. But then in the moment is thinking. But the thinking is aligned with the belief. It's like you get an apple from an apple tree, right? When you're now thinking these belief manufactured thoughts in the midst of the activity, you actually begin to feel whatever those thoughts are projecting. So you begin to feel the documentary that is not very good. You begin to feel like you're not very good. You start to feel a failure of something that hasn't happened yet, right? So you begin to experience the emotions of a future that you don't want. Your emotions, which are manufactured by those thoughts, which came from the belief, your emotions determine your actions. They determine your actions, the choices that you're making in editing your documentary, right? The ideas that you do or do not have. So you begin to actually embody this, I'm not capable. It reminds me of in scripture where it says the word becomes flesh. The belief becomes you. And so you start to become incapable because you are feeling incapable, because you were thinking incapable. And now we look at the results. And you look at the results, and they're not what you're capable of doing. It's not your full creative expression. It's not your best work. And that then reinforces the belief that, see, I knew it, I wasn't capable.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's not that you produced work that was below your capacity because it's true that you're not capable. You produced work that was below your capacity simply because you believed you were incapable. Because that is the way the human being operating system works. Your beliefs produce thoughts, produce emotions, produce actions, produce results, and those results reinforce the beliefs. And that's why we say, very succinctly, the brain is a goal-achieving machine. And so if we were to apply our methodology to it, right, we would look at this belief or this thought that I'm incapable. And I would say, well, does that move you into a powerful state or a primal state? What's your answer?
I'm in a primal state when I'm like that, yeah.
You're in a state, right. Now, you know our methodology now. If the thinking of I'm not capable of doing this is moving you into a primal state, what do we know about that thinking? Is it true or is it untrue?
Yeah, it's untrue, yeah.
It's untrue. So then we say, okay, so this idea that I'm incapable is not true. So what must be true is what?
We are more than capable. Yeah.
You're more than capable. And then we would say, okay, so what evidence do you have, Jordan, for the fact that you're more than capable? Because this is where we start to activate the supportive neural networks and memories and evidence that you've already accumulated in your life to get this new belief to become the predominant belief. So like, what evidence do you have that you're more than capable?
We've shot like really beautiful documentaries in the past, mini documentaries. We've had fantastic feedback from industry. So yeah, it's definitely there. So I need to, yeah.
Great. So you have your own and you can't skip this part. I mean, you come up with a list for it, right? And then by the time you're done with it, you're like, I'm really fucking capable. Like, I can't even believe I was doubting my capacity, right? I can believe it because it's just a part of me and I don't hate it. I'm not trying to stuff it down. I'm not trying to get rid of it. Oh, that's what it feels like to be incapable. That was when I was, 6 years old and someone told me that I couldn't do something. But then you combine all of this real life evidence you have of capability with philosophical evidence. And this is why the philosophy of what we teach is so important, because, and I don't know if you have a religious background, a spiritual belief system, or you just believe in laws that govern nature or the universe, but you and I could look at this in a very unreligious way and say, okay, don't you think that the vision is in a sense given to you for this documentary? Aren't you called to do this documentary?
I feel like that, yeah.
Okay. And so would it be a stretch to say that the vision that we all have is something that's kind of given to us by a greater part of ourselves? It's like a calling to go do something?
Definitely.
Right. So do you think that you would be given a vision that you had the lack of capacity for?
No.
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 It goes back to Einstein's most important decision. I mean, that's like a very Old Testament God. Let me give Jordan something that excites him, that he's going to dedicate a year or more of his life to, that's going to cost him a bunch of money, that he's going to get down to editing and not be capable of doing.
Yeah, it would be cruel.
Right. So we see that. And the power, I believe, of what we just walked through is, I wasn't trying to convince you of anything other than what you actually believe that you just had sort of forgotten or not applied to the situation, right? You really believe that you've been given a vision, and that if you were given a vision, you'd be given all the tools and resources and capacity to actually make it happen. And that, combined with your own collecting of evidence of your own life, of how you're more than capable and you and the team are more than capable, now becomes the foundation for a new decision. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be times when you're editing where you forget that. You hit a little snag and it triggers you. And you go, shit, am I really capable of this? And then you go, wait a minute, I'm already playing this game, right? But before we had this conversation, you didn't have the evidence that you now have. But you're never going to look at, when you're aware of the thinking that you're incapable, you're never going to look at it the same way ever again. Are you?
No, I love that. Thank you. I will hold that definitely over.
This is real transformation. And it didn't take years of therapy, right? It didn't take even you going to a 3-day event. And it reminds me of one of the clients I worked with who felt like he didn't belong. He called me one night. He's like, hey, I was at this like really amazing get together with these movers and shakers in Miami. It was the top real estate, person in Miami. It was the top DJ, the top restaurateur, the top this, top that. And he's like, I was invited to have dinner with them because I was sort of identified as like a top person, right? 29 years old, running a multi-$10 million company, had been very, very successful since he was younger, Egyptian Muslim. So I said, okay, what's the problem? He goes, well, I moved into a primal state last night and I couldn't get out of it. I said, okay, cool. So what'd you do? He goes, well, I remember what you said, that the only cause of me moving into suffering is my own thinking. I said, okay, great. He says, so I looked at the thinking. I was like, what'd you find? And he said that I don't belong here. I was like, oh, he's like, yeah, it started out like at the core of it was I don't belong here. But then it was like, maybe this is a joke. Maybe they thought I was somebody else. Maybe there's going to be a big surprise where they're like, you're the loser in the group, ha, 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 like out of a movie, right? And he's like, I just felt stressed. I couldn't be present with anybody. Like I just, now I'm embarrassed about the way that I showed up. I said, well, what'd you do when you noticed that what you were thinking was you didn't belong here? He goes, well, I knew that it wasn't true because that's what you teach, but I couldn't see it as untrue. He was stuck in self-awareness. And this is where you and I have talked about, and I'm going to language some of this way because I think you may want to use some of what we just did here. Like it's quick, it's powerful, right? So I'm going to describe it as you and I have talked about, not we just talked about. You and I have talked about how self-awareness isn't enough. I mean, we have a whole generation of people who are stuck in self-awareness. They're aware of the fact that they feel like they're not capable, and they know it's impacting them in negative ways, but they don't know how to change it. And so I said, okay, got it, to my clients. So the thinking is that you don't belong, but you can't see that as untrue. He was like, no, I think it's true. Like these people were amazing. It was even the vice president of the Miami Heat professional basketball team. Okay. So he's trying to continue to reinforce this idea, but I'm not buying into it. Now, I had leverage with him. I had been coaching with him. I knew what his belief systems were. So I said, let me ask you a question. I said, you believe in God, don't you? Now, you don't have to pull the God card. Obviously, I don't do that with someone I'm coaching who doesn't believe in God, but he did. So do you believe in God, don't you? He said, yes, because he's a devoutly religious Muslim. I said, yeah, so your God, is he the omnipotent, omniscient, all-knowing kind of God? He goes, yeah, that's him. I said, got it. So let me ask you a question. How did he put you in a place that you didn't belong last night? And there was this dead silence on the other side of the phone. And I hear him say, oh my God. And I said, what? He said, I belong everywhere I am. That's transformation, right? It's a fundamental reorientation to your reality that can happen in a split second around something that has been plaguing you your whole life. Because I'm not trying to get him in front of a mirror affirming to himself, I belong, I belong, I belong, I belong, I belong. Frankly, I could have never even come up with that I belong everywhere I am, right? I just took him into the unintelligence of the thinking and asked him a couple of questions to see what was really true for him. And that's what he discovered. Now, does that mean the next time he goes out to something like that, he's not going to feel like he doesn't belong? No, but now he's got weapons. Now he comes to the game with an army, right? Because he's going to notice faster than ever before that he's moved into, I don't belong here. And he's going to be able to bring into that conversation faster, more powerfully than ever before. No, I belong everywhere I am. And so that to me is what's so exciting about this approach to transformation, is that there's a single moment of real transformation. And I would describe it as the moment you see your unintelligent thinking is unintelligent. The moment you see that your limiting belief isn't true anymore. It's like, bam, like you can't unsee it. There may still be some echo effect around it and some practice. That's the practice of being in the work on a moment by moment basis. But now you've got the tools for real change.
I'm keeping that. Yeah, really am. Like it is like you say, it's like that. It was, thank you so much. I'm going to share this with my two brothers as well, because they're in their editing as well. So
yeah, you guys are destined for what you're doing, right? It's why you've been given the vision. And it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be times that you doubt yourself. And like I said, you don't beat yourself up for the doubt. You don't become afraid of the doubt. You're not like, holy shit, there's that feeling of me being incapable again. You're just like, oh, I hear you. I gotcha. But I'm also the enlightened part of me that had a conversation with David. And I'm like, okay, got it. We're gonna do this together. The part of me that doubts, right? And that part of me now that's stronger than ever, that knows like, no, this is my birthright. This is why I'm here, right? No matter how this turns out, this is going to be an amazing process for us. Yes, sometimes I get into the creative block around the editing piece, but we always get through it. And frankly, we're going to get through it better and even more creatively if I just relax around it.